Hey guys, and we continue on our off-season preview shows for all 32 NHL teams. Today, I'm going to be talking all about the Toronto Maple Leafs, taking a look at their off-season ahead and giving my opinions on what they need to do this off-season. If you look at the thumbnail right here, Mitch Marner, Matthew Knies, and John Tavares, the Leafs have a big off-season ahead. It's not going to be a quiet offseason for the Toronto Maple Leafs. We are going to hear their name quite a bit, I think, here during this offseason. If you are a Leafs fan, make sure to leave your comments in the video, comments below of the video on what you want to see the Leafs do this offseason. And then feel free to agree with me, disagree with me, all of that stuff in the comments below. But we're going to start with the first segment, which is taking a look at draft picks and management. The Toronto Maple Leafs, a little bit draft pick depleted over the next couple years. They do not have a first-round pick in this year's draft. They do have Florida's second-round pick and Colorado's third-round pick. No fourth-round picks for the Leafs. They have their fifth, sixth, and seventh, as well as Pittsburgh's fifth. So not a lot of top draft picks. Obviously, Florida's second, but no first-round picks for the Leafs in this upcoming year's draft. And then looking ahead to future years as well. No first or second next year and no first in 2027. So first round picks in the Leafs, there are none the next few years. Of course, we did have a change with the president of hockey operations, Brendan Shanahan, leaving the organization, but general manager Brad Treliving stays the same. Craig Berube remains head coach and has a little bit more power now from what I've read heading into the next season. And what I mean by power is he has a little bit more say in what players are going to be acquired and that type of thing. So a little bit more of an opinion for Craig Berube, which I think is a good thing because I do think he is the right coach to take this Leafs team on a long playoff run. Taking a look at offer sheet capability, and well, the Leafs really don't have any offer sheet capability really to any value. So the Leafs are able to offer sheet a player a contract up to $2,340,037. So they cannot offer a player $2.5 million as an offer sheet because they do not have their second round pick next year. So they are very limited when it comes to offer sheet capability, which kind of does suck for this Leafs team because if we look at this screen here, Leafs have approximately $25,709,001 when it comes to cap space. So this Leafs team has a lot of cap space, but they're going to have to use it through trades or free agency and not offer sheeting a young forward. First on the screen here, we can see is Matthew Knies. And when I look at this offseason for Toronto, I cannot see the Leafs letting Matthew Knies go anywhere. He is a very up-and-coming young player. We saw what he did for the Leafs this season, making a huge impact. And with Mitch Marner and John Tavares' future unknown with Toronto, Matthew Knies is a huge piece to the puzzle. And a very young player too still. So the Leafs will want to get him signed. Matthew Knies in the playoffs, 13 games, he had 5 goals and 2 assists, so 7 points overall in the playoffs. And then during the regular season, he was 5th in scoring on the Leafs. 58 points in 78 games, 29 goals, and 29 assists for Toronto. So Matthew Knies, I expect him to get re-signed. I expect him to get a hefty pay raise as well for Toronto. Pontus Holberg and Nicholas Robertson. Hard to tell exactly what's going to happen with. I think both of the guys get re-signed to probably cheap couple year, 2 to 3 year type deals. Maybe even a one year type deal. We'll have to see, but not going to break the bank overall. Matthew Knies, of course, is the most important contract that the Toronto Maple Leafs need to get signed when it comes to RFAs. Looking at UFAs, and there's 5 of them here on this list. Number 1 is the most prized free agent on the market this year in Mitch Marner. And it's every single team, I think, in the NHL is going to want Mitch Marner. So having said that, the Leafs should really be interested in re-signing him. But with the way things have gone for this Toronto Maple Leafs team and the core 4 that they've had now for quite a few years, and they still cannot go on long runs in the playoffs. Now, hey, it's not easy to go in long runs on the playoffs. And a lot of people will mention, Terry, your Minnesota Wild hasn't made it past the first round in so many years. That's true. But Minnesota does not have a core 4 like Toronto does, with Austin Matthews, Mitch Marner, John Tavares, and William Nylander. Those are 4 incredibly talented offensive forwards, and this team should, with those 4 guys in the lineup, be a Stanley Cup contender, of course, because you have other pieces around them as well. So having said that, this Toronto Maple Leafs team has kind of gone through it. They've made some changes, and they're still not able to go on a long run. They did take Florida to 7 games. So it's not like the Leafs are super far away, but they're just not quite there yet. And when I look at Mitch Marner, he's just not that playoff type guy. The way he plays, he's just not a playoff performer. You look at the regular season last year, he had 102 points in 81 games played, 18 more points than William Nylander, who was second on the team. So Mitch Marner did have a fantastic season. And then when you do look at the playoffs, he did have 13 points in 13 games, second on the team in points in the playoffs, 2 goals, 11 assists. So he did have points in the playoffs, just not very many goals. 2 goals in the playoffs, but Mitch Marner is obviously much more of a playmaker. I could see Toronto re-signing him, but the fact that he's a UFA going to the free agent market, he's the number 1 most sought-after free agent. He's going to get a very, very high contract. He's going to get an 8-year deal if he stays with Toronto, 7-year deal on another team with a very high AAV. So does Toronto re-sign him? At this point, I would say no. I think he goes to free agency. I think he goes to a new team. John Tavares, second below, obviously, Mitch Marner here on the UFA part of this list. And obviously, coming off an $11 million per year contract, he's going to take if he's going to stay with Toronto, he's going to have a much lower cap hit. I think John Tavares, from everything I've read, he wants to stay in Toronto. So I could see him taking a team-friendly deal here with this Leafs team, and that's exactly what they need. If they can get John Tavares on a cheap, team-friendly contract, they can get Matthew Knies signed, they're going to have cap space available to go and add 1 to 2 other players. So they're going to be able to add a couple more players. Max Pacioretty, Steven Lorentz, and Yanni Hakanpää, I think could find themselves on different teams. Maybe the Leafs re-sign Max Pacioretty to a 1-year cheap deal. But the main guys in this list, obviously, is Matthew Knies. If, with discussions with Mitch Marner, if things change from how they've been in the public, in the media, if things change and Mitch Marner decides to re-sign in Toronto, then obviously you'll have to take a look at what his cap hit is at. But he had 102 points last year. So offensively, he is going to help this Toronto Maple Leafs team. I just don't know if you go back with this same core four again. I don't know that this team beats Florida or another team in the East as well. So lots of free agents here, but over $25 million in cap space for this Toronto Maple Leafs team, which is not something that we're very used to in recent years. Obviously, having that core four signed, they've had to wheel and deal with the remaining dollars, but they've got money now, and they can go after some free agents. Taking a look at the forward group as it is projected to look right now, Matthew Knies, Austin Matthews, and William Nylander, followed by Pontus Holmberg, Max Domi, and Calle Jarnkrok, Bobby McMahon, Scott Lofton, and Nicholas Robertson, and then Jacob Quillen, David Kampf, and Ryan Reeves. If this is the Toronto Maple Leafs forward group heading into the regular season, they're going to be in a little bit of trouble. That top line obviously is great with Knies, Matthews, and Nylander, but it's quite a big drop-off with Pontus Holmberg and Calle Jarnkrok on that second line. Max Domi, I think he fits better as a third line center, but it is quite a big drop-off. But as we just saw, Leafs have a lot of money to spend. And as we'll get to here later on with defense and goaltending, I really think the very, very large majority of the money that Toronto is going to spend this offseason should be bolstering this forward group to help make it more offensive, but also maybe more physical for a long playoff run. Looking at the top UA left wingers available, of course, Nikolai Ehlers would be a perfect fit into that top six for the Toronto Maple Leafs. And then Brad Marchand, of course, playing with Boston his whole career until heading to Florida during the season. It would be really weird to see him in a Toronto Maple Leafs jersey, but Marchand is exactly the type of player that Toronto should be looking at. He has the offensive capability, but he's not fun to play against either. That's why people call him the Rat. So fans of other teams that play against Brad Marchand don't like him, but fans of the team that he plays for absolutely love him, and it makes a lot of sense. JVR, maybe he returns to Toronto. I don't really see that, but he wouldn't break the bank. He would be kind of a third line type forward if the Leafs were going to look at re-signing him, meaning he's played with them before, but it's been quite a few years. Looking at the centers available, of course, John Tavares, as I said, he's expressed he wants to stay with Toronto, so if they can get a deal done, a decent deal, 38 goals, 36 assists, he's still 74 points in 75 games. He's still producing offense. So I would look at re-signing him to a team-friendly deal. And then, well, if you look at the other centers that Toronto has, obviously you've got Austin Matthews, then you've got Max Domi, who I think, as I said, is that third-line guy. Scott Lofton is a perfect third or fourth-line guy. So really what Toronto needs for their center group is a second-line guy. And if for some reason you don't really want to go with Tavares, Sam Bennett would be a absolutely perfect addition for this Toronto team. He's got the offense, but he's much more physical than John Tavares. He's a playoff performer type guy, and then you'd be stealing him away from Florida. So if I'm Toronto and I'm looking at this list, my number one target here is Sam Bennett. If I can't get Sam Bennett, then go back to John Tavares again. Cheaper, team-friendly deal. You get him under center. You have your center depth pretty much set, and then you can focus on wingers. Right wingers. as I said earlier, I think Mitch Marner probably does go to a different team. So that will leave some space open for Toronto. I could see them going after a guy like Riley Smith. I could see Corey Perry would be really interesting in Toronto, but I could see them going after a guy like Riley Smith. Brock Besser is going to be a hot commodity on the free agent market this year. Of course, when teams miss out on Mitch Marner, or a team like Toronto, if they find out that they're not going to be re-signing Mitch Marner, then they are going to be focusing heavily on Brock Besser, just because of the age and the production he had. 50 points, 75 games played. If you go to the next three guys, 40 points, 40 points, and 30 points. So there's quite a big drop-off there when it comes to free agent wingers. Patrick Kane, I don't see him in a Toronto jersey. I just don't see it. But we'll have to see. RFAs, obviously, the Leafs want to get Matthew Knies re-signed, as I said previous, but and then any other RFA on this list, Toronto would have to acquire them by trade. They don't have the draft picks to try to offer sheet any of these players, because you're not getting any of these players below 2 point whatever million it is. So 2.4 million something, I think. So if the Leafs wanted to acquire a player like Marco Rossi, who's in heavy trade rumors, they would have to offer him a trade. I think JJ Peterka or Ryan McLeod from Buffalo, Mason McTavish would be a huge addition. If the Leafs could somehow get Mason McTavish from Anaheim. Now, however, you would have to give up something because the Leafs don't have first-round picks. So they're going to have to give up a player to get him, a couple players at least. So it would be tricky to get that deal done. But if the Leafs are going to focus on a player on this list here, obviously Matthew Knies, but other than him, I'd be looking at a guy like Ryan McLeod, Will Cooley, Mason McTavish, JJ Peterka, I think would be good additions to the Leafs if they were to add them by trade. As I mentioned earlier, kind of hinted to when I was saying how the Toronto should be focusing on improving their offense, I like their defense. Jake McCabe and Chris Tanev, Morgan Riley and Brandon Carlo, Simon Benoit and Oliver Ekman-Larsson. They also have Philippe Myers as an extra for injuries. So maybe the Leafs want to go add one more defenseman as a depth guy, as a call-up from the AHL, but they probably have younger defensemen in the AHL. Overall, I like this defense core. I think, as I said, they should be focusing on improving the offense. I think this defensive core is pretty much set. If they did want to pull off a trade for another player, maybe they retool this defense a little bit, try to upgrade it a little bit, or they try to upgrade the offense by dealing some defensive player. We would have to see. But overall, as the defense looks right now, I think it's pretty decent heading into next year, and I think the holes are on the offense. Looking at this list, adding a guy like Ryan Lindgren would be huge for Toronto. Aaron Ekblad would obviously be a huge addition to the top four for Toronto. So there are some defensemen, if they disagree with me, and if they want to go and add one more top UFA defenseman to that defense core, they could really bolster it and make it even stronger with adding a guy on this list to the team. Looking at the goaltenders for the Toronto Maple Leafs, Anthony Stolarz and Joseph Woll. Stolarz has shown what he can do when he stays healthy the last few years. It's shocking what he's done. Left Anaheim since he's played in Florida, and then he's done it with Toronto now as well. He's been very consistent, playing very well. So goaltending wise, they've got Stolarz. They also got Joseph Woll. I think they're pretty much set. here with goaltending. If there's one of these two struggles, if there's injuries, they can bring someone up from the AHL, or they could always look to acquire somebody during this season. UFA, RFA goaltenders, as I said, I think the Leafs are pretty set here. Maybe they go at James Reimer to bring him back. No, I don't see them doing that. Maybe during the season, if they needed to get a goalie, maybe they would look at a guy like Reimer, who played pretty well with Buffalo last year. But I think they stand pat when it comes to goaltending heading into free agency. Offseason tasks for the Toronto Maple Leafs. Number one is re-sign Matthew Knies. You want to get him re-signed, long-term deal. Don't have to worry about that. You got a long-term forward signed, and then you can focus on other needs in the lineup. And the other needs, I think, in this lineup, I think you need to add 2 top 6 forwards who have physical ability but also offensive ability. Yes, I'm looking at a guy like Sam Bennett, who I think would just perfectly fit into this Toronto Maple Leafs lineup. With the group of players they have, I think he would be a great addition to that top 6, that second line. I think he would be the perfect addition for the Leafs, but getting him to go from Florida to Toronto would probably be very difficult, I think. Just with the tax advantages Florida has, Toronto would have to offer him a pretty penny to get that deal done. But that's the Toronto Maple Leafs off-season preview show. If you agreed with me, let me know in the comments below. If you disagreed with me, let me know in the comments below. Hit the like button if you guys enjoyed the show. Hit the subscribe button if you're new, and check out other preview shows that we've done, and keep watching as we continue to do more off-season preview shows heading into the NHL off-season. Thank you everyone for watching, and we'll see you guys on the next show.